Dodell.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Little surprise today. Actually, we were going to have a porn star, but we've decided that because of the recent developments with the fires, that we would defer her to a later date. But everybody's wondering, why is this happening? In fact, I'm now living in a hotel room with my wife and 2 dogs.
Yeah, you live right near Paramount Ranch.
I did. I do. Paramount Ranch is destroyed. We used to go walk there all the time, ride horses through there, and Malibu Lake is gone. I have very close friends. We have very close friends. In fact, 2 of them who lived at Malibu Lake, both of them houses are gone to the ground.
Amazing.
And you have to ask yourself, why? You look at these pictures. There's a house standing perfectly fine, untouched, and next door it's burned to the ground.
Yeah, it's so random.
Don't you want to ask the spiritual question? Why? Why did it happen to one family and it didn't happen to another?
Well, I heard one really sad story last night. This guy was talking about his neighbor, and she's an elderly woman, just lost her husband. She takes care of her child who's paraplegic, her son, and his house stood, and her house burned to the ground. Now, is there some spiritual meaning behind that, or is it just? How awful is that? I mean, you're taking care of a son that's paraplegic. You just lost your husband, and now you lose your house.
Yeah, that's pretty hard to answer that question. That's asked a lot of times to ministers and priests and rabbis and everybody who's in the spiritual world. And how come good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people, et cetera, and why was it selective? Einstein said God did not play dice with the universe. So this is not random, according to Einstein.
What do you think it is?
I think, spiritually, I heard somebody saying in the elevator at the hotel the other day, and it kind of resonated with me.
Because you're staying at a hotel right now.
Yeah, I've been staying there since a couple, 3 days.
I mean, you're evacuated still. Mandatory evacuation.
Yeah, I can't get in there.
Can't get in there?
The one day I walked in.
You did walk in?
I actually hitchhiked.
What?
Because there's no cars on the road. They can't let anybody in, right? So I'm walking, it's getting cold outside, So there I am, a 79-year-old hitchhiker.
Where'd you park, like off of...
I parked off of Cornell near the Wizen Center.
Okay, by the Wizen.
Yeah, so I'm walking, right?
The Canyon Club.
Right,
okay.
So some fire captain picked me up, drove me home. It was very nice.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
He was a good guy. He had his wife in the car with a couple of their dogs.
Were you thumbing, or
I was thumbing.
You were thumbing?
I said to myself...
You put your thumb out there?
It was a reminder of what I was doing when I was in college. I said to myself...
That is awesome.
I got to be the oldest hitchhiker walking on this road.
In the last 20 years.
No, for sure. But I got in to the house, and we have an extra car that we don't use, that we basically a spare that we've had when a friend of ours died, and it was her car, so we still have it.
Okay.
And everything was fine. Fed the fish,
Fish okay.
They were complaining. They said, "Look, we're only working for scale." So they were okay. But today we have a real special guest. I decided that one of the purposes of this show is to help people whenever we can. And this is a golden opportunity. So you asked the question of why is it happening to certain people and not others, good people and everything else? This is a challenge. And the guy in the elevator, what he was saying was it's just about new beginnings. You got to forget the past is the past. It was wonderful. You enjoyed it. Now you got to be brand new life. People are going to be buying new things and their houses are going to be different, whatever. And there's not a positive that you could look at for this, but if you had to spin it some way, that may be the way to do it. But the point is that the purpose of this show, for people who don't know, is to help the public. That's the only reason I wrote the book and this show, for the same reason.
The only reason you did the show.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some guidelines. We're going to have a special guest, Michael Rubin, who is a public insurance adjuster. I've known Michael for at least 40 years. I knew him when he was a teenager, actually. He's very, very good. He knows exactly what to do. People are going to ask the question, what do I do? It's chaotic enough Now I got to deal with my insurance company. Am I covered? Am I not covered?
What are they going to cover? What they not going to cover?
Oh, look, I chased insurance companies for 40 years. That's what I did. That was my specialty, was property and casualty insurance claims. Coverage, interpretation of policies, policy limits, the policy defenses. They will do what they will do not to pay the claims. That's not all insurance companies.
Let me ask you something. I mean, do you think they really will with this devastation and this heartache? I mean, I can understand where they may not want to pay one claim on a house or something like that.
That may be. Look, if you're covered by an insurance company called Chubb, CHUBB, the best.
Okay.
They're terrific.
All right.
Anything, I think in all the years I was practicing full-time chasing insurance companies, never had a claim with Chubb. They're very good. That's not to say the same for some of those, which we call the direct writers on the lower end. I don't want to mention their names.
Just can you mention the worst one? Come on. In case they're listen, you're trying to help people. Hold on. You're trying to help somebody out. There's a lot of people that are carrying insurance, and there may be they may be wondering how their insurance company is going to treat them. Can you at least give the worst one?
No, because there's so many that are bad.
All right, well,
Look, let me give you an example of how it works. Many, many years ago,
I tried.
It seems like many years ago that I gave a speech to the California State Bar Association. I was a guest speaker, and the subject was the only float in town isn't at the Rose Parade, because that's how insurance works. You pay a premium. They take that premium. That premium goes into a building or a stock or an investment someplace, and it's earning money. They're making 15, 20, whatever they're making on it, they're making on it.
Right.
And they're using your money to do that with the expectation that they're not going to have to pay it out. But when you make a big claim, what does that mean? They got to take the money from the reserves, which they establish, and they end up having to pay it. What's that going to do? It reduces earnings. And it affects cash flow and a variety of other things. I know I told the story. For those people who haven't listened, I should just mention before I go to the story that the purpose of the show is, number one, is to give you information. People who have friends who were lost in the fire, or they lost themselves in the fire, they want to know what to do. It's the lack of certainty and the unknowingness of it all that gets people more anxious than they would normally be given these circumstances. So one of the things we do is give you information. Number two, we tell you stories, because the stories are real cases. They were either cases that I did when I was practicing full-time or from the bench. And I thought I would be really anti-insurance company, because that's all I did. I made a very nice living, thankfully, chasing insurance companies. But I found out that they have sometimes a relatively decent, honorable defense. Fraud is a defense. And some people take advantage of situations, which I'm going to talk to you about after our guest does the interview this afternoon. I'm going to tell you what experiences I've had with it. I once went back to the Midwest. I won't tell you where it was, because you'll recognize the name of the insurance company. And I made it. No, it wasn't Aetna.
I'm kidding.
But Aetna's in Connecticut. It was in the Midwest, and it took me 6 months to take the deposition. They fought me on every way to keep me from getting that deposition. I finally got it. Went back, took his deposition, gave him a series of statistics that I had compiled. It turns out that they pay about 15% of the legitimate claims that they turn down. They turn them down for many, 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 many reasons, and I'll talk about that after the interview this afternoon. And so part of what we do is give you guidelines. What I'm willing to do, what I want to do, is if anybody's got any questions, get in touch with me. I won't give you any legal advice, but I will give you guidelines. What to do, where to go, how do you go about it, what you can reasonably expect. No charge. So if anybody wants to ask me a question without giving you legal advice,
email.
Get in touch with me. We're going to call Michael Rubin right now, and he's going to be our guest. And Michael is an exceptionally good public adjuster. So we'll talk about what to do from the public adjuster standpoint.
All right. It's askjudgeherb@gmail.com. Askjudgeherb@gmail.com if you have any questions for the judge concerning this crazy fire
May take a couple of days because I'm without my computer.
Maybe your dogs can help you out. All right, we'll be back after this.
KCAA. Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil, so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties in getting a hold of Mr. Rubin, but we will do it because I spoke to him about 3:45, and he's waiting for our call. So, a little technical difficulty for the moment, but our super-duper producer is going to fix this instantaneously.
Sure. Can I just put my fist through this computer right now? Is that okay?
I don't know. People are pretty angry these days. But I guess
I hate computers, man. I hate computers.
But I do want to talk about insurance because it was an area of expertise that I had for many years. In fact, I wrote an article. In fact, I wrote several articles on insurance claims and claims handling. One of the first things you need to do is contact your insurance agent or broker. Now, there's a difference between an agent and a broker. An agent works directly for the insurance company, and they have what they call binding authority. So you're really talking to the insurance company when you talk to an agent. A lot of the direct writers, like Farmers, only deal with it. State Farm deal only with their own agents. The brokers are out there just shopping the marketplace, and they don't have any authority. They just shop.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. All right, let's say I had fire damage or I lost my house. What would be the first thing to do? Call the agent?
Call the agent or broker first. Or if you don't know the agent or broker and you know how to contact the insurance company, there usually is on the policy, there's usually a phone number to reach them for claims.
Okay.
And they have people that are basically working 24/7 so that they can take claims in the middle of the night. Not who you're going to talk to, but you're talking to somebody. And they'll make a note. Now, that's very, very important because the statute of limitations is told, it stops the minute you call the insurance company or their representative.
There's a statute of limitations?
Oh, there's a contractual statute of limitations in your policy. Policies are written for very sophisticated people. The average person has no clue what's in that policy. They talk to the broker, they talk to the agent, they want X dollars worth of insurance. Normally it's for the building. Now this applies not only to people who own their buildings, but it applies to tenants, it applies to people who are have a condominium. Then you get into some real esoteric areas, such as common areas, what's covered by the homeowners association. These are all interesting legal issues that you need to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about or knows how to deal with the various elements. So the statute of limitations, and it's enforceable. You must also cooperate with the insurance company. So if you stall or you wait too long, they might argue later on, well, we would have done something different. We might have known more. We would have known less. Whatever it is their story is.
Let me ask a question. All right. Let's say I call my insurance company talk to my agent or whatever and say, hey, my house burned down.
Yeah.
I have no money. I have nothing. All my assets are gone. What does the insurance company do? What would they do? What would be the first step that they would do for all these people that lost their homes?
I see Michael Rubin just tried to call me, so.
Well, I'm going to try calling him. Just give me a minute, Judge.
Okay.
Just let's answer these questions, and we'll get this taken care of. Okay. So what would the insurance company do? Would they give you a check, or what are they going to do for you?
Depends on your insurance company. Like when I was talking about Chubb before, not that I'm doing promotions for them, they'll send you a check the next day. They're very, very good. There's something called additional living expenses. That's covered by most policies, whether it's residential or commercial. It obviously doesn't apply to commercial because it's a living expense. They'll put you up in the hotel or wherever it is.
That's what I'm asking.
They will give you the value of what it would have been if you had rented it to somebody, had rented it out, and you get a real estate appraiser. Somebody comes in and says, okay, your house would have rented for $3,500 a month. Well, they'll give you $3,500. If you want to live in a trailer, that's up to you. But you can take the $3,500 and pay it toward a hotel expense. The other big element where there's most dispute, I would say a good percentage, over value of contents. Now, you got a ring that your grandmother left you. It's priceless to you.
Right.
But they're only going to pay a fair market value. You could go down to Zales or whoever the jewelers are and pick it up for peanuts. But it's not the same. It doesn't have the same intrinsic value.
I'm calling Michael right now.
Okay, well,
yeah,
there
Michael,
he is,
hold
Michael.
on 1 second. Okay, just hold on. Okay, here we go. So we got it taken care of. Okay.
Good afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon.
Well, I was telling Gary and our audience that I know you for at least 40 years. I think I know you when I think I knew you when you were a teenager, but maybe not.
Yes.
Anyway, I was telling the folks today we deferred. We were going to have a porn star today, but we've kind of traded her up for you. So you're our expert today because of what's going on with the fires, and people are asking, what do they do? And I tell people who ask me, get yourself a really good, qualified, experienced, caring public insurance adjuster. And I think that this is an opportunity for you to tell us what you do, what does a public adjuster do, what should people do, and make them feel a little bit more comfortable under the circumstances. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what your business is.
Okay, thank you. My name is Michael Rubin, and you're right, Herb. We know each other for a long time. And I am a licensed public insurance adjuster, licensed by the state of California to be the adjuster for the insured on first-party property damage claims, meaning it's your own insurance company. Meaning, unfortunately, the victims we see out there that are out of their homes, that sustain damage, your own insurance company will provide an adjuster, either a staff adjuster or an independent adjuster who represents the insurance company. In California, in 50 states, there are licenses for public insurance adjusters licensed by various state insurance departments. So we are optional and available to assist the homeowner, the business owner in the preparation and presentation of claims. What I was thinking about when you asked that question, I think the most important thing right now, people are displaced, and whether or not they need or use a public adjuster, it's important right now that they keep track of what they're spending outside, meaning all meals they're eating out, all the mileage they're driving as a result of this event, because even the mileage is compensable at 58.5 cents a mile for the additional mileage. And before this is over, that will be thousands of miles and thousands of dollars of wear and tear on your vehicles, which incorporates the cost of the gas. Right now, it's just important to keep track of all the expenses, because the insureds are going to be spending way more than they normally would if they could live in their home and eat at home and not have to travel out as often as they are now. And that would also include the expense of a hotel.
Yeah, well, that makes a big difference because, you know, a lot of people, in fact, Gary was asking me the question before we called you, what happens if you haven't got any money? If everything you have is in your house and it burned. Well, there's something called additional living expense, and I was addressing that, so I'm glad you made that point. That's very important that they do that. But I think, isn't it important that they deal with somebody who knows how to deal with the insurance company? Trying to deal with the insurance company yourself is a very difficult and sometimes challenging situation. In fact, there are many times where the broker or the agent may even have a conflict of interest if you report it to them, because if you say you thought you were going to buy X and you ended up your policy and it doesn't provide for that, why not? So people are going to be talking about, maybe my agent screwed up too, and that's down the road if it should ever happen. And
that's right. And you bring up a very, very good point, is we like to keep a very good paper trail. And today with the email and the fax, very good to keep in communication with whoever it is that they're speaking to at the insurance company. A priority that we ask for when we're involved is a certified copy of the policy, one that's stamped certified. And it's a document, usually somewhere around 60, 80 pages. Most people have just a declaration page. And there are a variety of available coverages, and many of them can be adjusted, or they call into fact coverage. And the one that I was thinking about the other day, just as this was happening, someone had called me and said, my house is on the ground. Am I going to get the limit of liability? And the answer is maybe, because it depends what type of, some replacement policies only pay actual cash value, meaning the depreciated amount until you actually replace. That's often true for the building as well as the personal property. So a lot of it has to do with how it's valued. And that's a big key consideration here, because insurance companies are very conservative. And what we've discovered up north with fires we see in Napa and Sonoma is the insurance carriers are using an Xactimate, which is a guide. It's a computerized estimating system. We have it as well. However, it doesn't apply when you have a custom home, because the numbers, even at the custom level of the Xactimate system, it's not commensurate with what's required. And the policy coverage is based on putting it back as it was at the time of the loss. And the question that's come up now that we're wrestling with is people that are losing their homes now, we're assessing it at what it costs now. When they actually go to replace, as we've discovered up north, supply and demand, the costs to go up. So how can they be made whole if they can't get the necessary additional cost when they come to replace it?
So you're talking I just want to ask you a question. You're talking about when they rebuild the home, they don't get, they give them an appraisal of what they think the home's worth, and then when they try to rebuild it, it's not the same, right? Because the construction cost is more?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Another way would be like this. We agree that we say we have an estimate of 600, an estimate of $1 million. We now agree it's 800,000 to replace it now, like it was with the code. However, it takes a year to get all the permits together and the plans, because that's what we're discovering it takes. Now, a year from now or 9 months from now, that 800 is now $1 million, because materials have gone up, the shortage of labor and contractors, and a lot of the insurance carriers are saying the insuring agreement, the contract, the policy says to value the claim at the time of the loss. Well, there's a reason for that, and I don't think it's to inure to the benefit of the insurance company to say, well, wait a minute, this thing happened a year ago, and At that time, you could have replaced it for $800. Doesn't matter if you need $950. Today, we insure you for what it cost then. And that's true, but it also says replacement costs. How else can an insurer, the consumer, be made whole if they can't pay the cost that's required when they mitigate or they make their replacement cost claim as soon as they can? So we've had some carriers that are agreeing to add and others that are not.
Well, you also have the option. Don't you have the option to replace or rebuild? You could buy another place, someplace local that's of like kind and quality, and many policies provide for that.
Yes, good point. That's a very good point. Yes, they do. And if the insured does do that, when they close escrow and they could move in, that's when the additional living expense would end, because now they've returned to the house. So that's something to keep in mind, because a lot of people that replace that way, they can't get into that house for a while. They may need to restore it. They may need to move things into it, and they still have the lot or the other house that's left. The other thing, Herb, that's important, we have just found over the years that you, the insured, can assign your replacement benefit, even though the insurance carrier has to agree that, yes, we'll agree to assign it, because it's not material, meaning they would have insured you anyway, and you now want to sell that house, and they've only paid the value, not the replacement cost, and say there's $100,000 left between the value and the replacement that can be assigned to a purchaser. They still have to do what you would have to do, and it doesn't change any of the liability. The carrier remains the same. It doesn't change. It's a benefit that can be transferable, that might help someone that doesn't want to rebuild, that wants to sell it to make it more valuable, to having that replacement benefit. I think the biggest area where we help people is the personal property, the recreation of a line item inventory somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 individual items valued at replacement. And that we have in our system a very good data bank, what we call generic inventory, that has, so as we start to put this in the computer, numerous items pop up. And it's much easier if you were to look at a catalog and say, oh yeah, I had one of those, I had one of those, I had two of these. These people often can't remember everything they have, and it's a long process. One of the pitfalls of this is to get the replacement cost.
You got to replace
for each item. That, well, you're entitled to the value whether you replace or not.
That's right, fair market value.
Most policies will pay the actual cash value until you replace. However, our theory is we find that it's better for the insured if they can obtain the full policy benefits plus removal if it applies. There's an additional 5% for removal by it showing that the actual cash value exceeds the policy limit. And the way to get there is to have a true replacement of today's values, not what you paid for it, but cross-reference. So when we source things, an example, people that have major losses, let's take an area like Bell Canyon. Do those people shop at Target or Macy's, or do they go to Nordstrom? So where we source the items is going to make a big difference in its replacement cost. And condition today is very important. A lot of the forms, because we put it right on the insurance company form, sometimes we have to put in a column for condition, because condition is essential to know the condition. So if we have, say, one family that they're elder and they don't sit in the couch every day, and another one, they have young kids that jump on the couch every day. So the useful life of that couch is different in the scenario 1 than scenario 2.
Yeah, that's the reason why I tell people they should talk to somebody like you, because all these nuances, even the options that you have, and the endorsements that are attached to that policy, and the time limits. These are really serious pitfalls potentially if you don't do it right.
It's a mess.
Right.
Well, that's why I did litigation all those years.
And Herb, you mentioned one other thing I think is really important, is that a lot of policies require the insured notice them within 180 days of the intent to repair or replace. And I don't think it bars recovery. However, since it's in the policy, we always indicate in our letter when we request a certified copy that this is notice of the insured's intent to comply with the policy, and at this point in time to reserve the right to make a replacement. Because later, if something came up, or some carriers there's some great carriers and some that aren't, they could take the position that the insured didn't comply, which a lot of people don't read the policy, so they don't know. And we have a lot of adjusters in California now that are out of state, so they're not certified in California. They have a 6-month period, and that means a lot of them aren't aware of how our insurance code works and how responsive the insurance company is required to be versus how it normally is, because their timelines as far as responding to correspondence, time in which to pay a claim, and also the requirements that the insured has to cooperate, the duty to exhibit damage if necessary or if possible. So it works both ways, but the insurance company is supposed to be assisting the insured in helping them to provide a way to make this claim. And it is time consuming and difficult. And without a good public adjuster, a good advocate, it's even harder on people because you don't know what they're going to do with what you give them, but we do. And you can also switch adjusters. We have a 5 adjuster rule now. Once it reaches 5 different adjusters, they have to give you a full status, which is the whole file instead of a monthly status. And that's pretty common to switch adjusters. People have to go home. And it's hard for us because we have an agreement with one adjuster, and the next one comes along and says, I don't understand that.
Oh my God.
They're different. One guy's from North Carolina, one guy's from Georgia. And that's why the Department of Insurance has limited it to 5. And with the 5, the 5th one, you get a whole recap. And that's where you can see where everything is on their side of it.
Yeah, but the public doesn't know that. The public hasn't got a clue.
The public doesn't know this.
No, of course not. We don't know anything. I mean, I guarantee a lot of these people that lost their homes probably don't even know like this statute of limitations and all these different nuances of their insurance. It's pretty heavy.
It is, and you mentioned something good there, because right now people are buying things they need, buying clothing and other things they need. They can be making a replacement claim right now. Forget the depreciation. That can go in as a replacement claim. You're actually making a physical replacement and spending the money. And this cost of acquisition, which is an item we use in the claim, incorporates into it the actual, not the time you spent. There's a mileage component, and think about this. Everything you had in your house was put away. So once you determine or agree on the value and or the replacement, who's going to put all of it away? It's worth something. So we have a method of calculating cost of acquisition and then putting it back in place. That's a big thing. And then a lot of our clients also employ decorators or designers, and they pay for that. Now, that's all, I believe, actual cash value. You paid someone to pick out the wall covering or to pick out the color of the paint. That's part of the value of what you had. So we compute the value of a decorator and or a designer in the value of the replacement of the building and also the personal property where it applies.
What happens in building losses? I've seen over many years. In fact, you probably remember I wrote an article on appraisals in California.
Yes, I do.
Disagree. Well, it's been a long time since I wrote it, but they do disagree as to the value of what your property is worth. What do you do when that happens?
Well, you mentioned the appraisal. Either party can demand appraisal, except a lawyer that you and I both know has told me, and it's interesting, there's a clause in the code now that refers to when you have more than 24 dwellings, that it's considered a disaster, and that the appraisal provision may be optional. Now, I haven't run into that. However, under normal circumstances, the appraisal provision provides that either the insured or the insurer, the insurance company, at their option, can demand appraisal, which means forget us, forget you, forget the insurance company adjuster. Two new people, two appraisers come in, one for the insured, one for the insurer, each paid for by their respective parties, and they select between them an umpire, or failing to do so, they can have a court-appointed umpire, which is usually a retired judge. And then out of the 3-member panel, the majority, meaning 2 out of the 3, determine the value and the loss component, not coverage. So it's more where we say $1 million and they say $500,000, and $750 isn't the right answer. Maybe it should be $950. So that's something that we need. Or you have a diamond that's one guy says $1 million, the other guy says $500,000. Well, that's valuation. But some of this is going to come down to coverage. And the most interesting one we have going now is with whether or not the code means code at the time of the loss or code when you go to replace. And State Farm, being that they're so big, they came up with a brilliant idea to sell an endorsement called post-loss code. If you can find one, I've seen one. But that means that since they sell that means that if you didn't buy that one, you only get the code that was enforced when the fire happened. Now we know that building department's going to make them do all kinds of things later as we discover, hey, we should have had sprinklers on the houses, and those are post-loss codes. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I just want to ask you a question. Like when Joe Turb is displaced right now, right? You're living in a hotel?
Yeah.
Okay. Does the insurance, fire insurance, cover being like evacuated and not being allowed back into your home?
Yes. That's why it's important for the hotel. All your meals are eating out, or you're having room service.
I'll be over for a lobster tonight, Judge.
And remember, this is important because the policy pays additional living expense. So the mortgage is the same, the property tax may be the same, but you didn't have to pay rent. You didn't have to live in a hotel or rent a house. And if you don't have cooking facilities, you have to eat out. So we're going to the insurance company is going to say, how much do you normally spend for food? So if I eat home every day and I'm careful, I have a family, young kids, then maybe I'm going to spend as little as I need to because I'm eating at home. Now I have to eat out. The same token, so I'm going to deduct the normal from what I incur. So if we had a client that eats out every night, every day, then there's no difference. So the less you used to spend, the more additional living expense for food in restaurants. For example, what about the traveling back and forth? The mileage is compensable.
What about the deductibles?
Okay, deductible doesn't apply if you exceed the limit of liability after the application of the deductible. And furthermore, even if that's not the case, where you have a sublimit in an area like, say, cash, because there's a limit to cash. So say I have a $10,000 cash loss and I get my $200, I can apply up to $9,800 towards my deductible because I can't recover that. That's in the excess loss.
That's a perfect example.
Even though I might...
No, but that's a perfect example of why people should rely on experts as opposed to trying to do this themselves. You can get the fast shuffle from the insurance company adjuster if you're doing it on your own and you're not sophisticated. Nobody, and I've been doing this a long, long time. Some of the things you mentioned, I said, I didn't really realize that. So unless somebody really goes to consult with an expert, they're really gambling and taking a chance they're not going to get the benefits to which they really are entitled. And that's why those are the questions that people need to ask. So let me get your phone number so we can recommend to people that they consider calling you if they have a need. So let's have your number.
It's Michael Rubin, R-U-B-I-N. And the number I'm on right now is the best number today. It's because I'm not at the office. The cell number is 818-919-9045. My office is also 818-728-0900, and my secretary is Melody. And I do have the forms, which we're happy as a courtesy to provide to anybody that needs any claim forms, proof of loss forms, and anything we might do consulting-wise as a courtesy. I'm happy to do that. I just hope people are okay.
Brother, you can tell Melody that you can hear the show on iHeart nationally. Gary, tell her how he does that.
Do what now?
How does he have to hear the show?
KCAAradio.com. It's live on the show right now. It's live on KCAAradio.com. It's also going to be archived after the show ends on KCAA. You just look up your name and face and all that, and they can listen to it again, download it, or listen to it. And it's on iHeartRadio a couple days after it airs. So there you go.
I've enjoyed this. I hope this helps somebody so that they're better off in the recovery process.
Well, I should ask the question that it really is a no-risk situation for these people. You're basically retained on a contingency fee basis, right? You get paid based on the results that you get. If they don't get anything, you don't get anything.
Correct.
So it makes imminent sense for somebody to say, you know what, I'd be crazy not to use one of these guys.
Why not? I mean, the itemization is worth it.
Just the inventory taking.
That's what I'm saying. It's worth its weight in gold.
You send somebody there and kind of count the stuff that would have been where it was, and then you price it out, right?
Yeah. I think it's great.
Is that what you do? Basically, you do an inventory.
Well, we sit down with them. It takes quite a while. And we put in what it costs retail today. Even if you bought it on sale, doesn't mean you can replace it on sale. And we talk about the replacement cost plus the acquisition, because that's part of the value. That's what we were talking about, putting it away. So it's more than just the item.
But generally,
putting you back.
Generally, they get the fair market value until they replace. And in that interim period, they got a period of time to do that, or they've waived the opportunity to pick up what we call the holdback.
That's right. That's an important point. That's why notifying of these intentions to replace is very important. And you brought up a real important point. It's early in the game to do that now. However, as time goes by, it is important that the insured notify the insurance carrier that they want to extend the time in which to file a replacement claim, meaning to actually replace, due to the fact the house isn't up yet, because that 180 days goes by right away. People forget about it. And I think it's very important that people stay on top of it, and the insurance companies are willing to make that adjustment. And one thing we didn't talk about, if there's time, is liberalization. some of the carriers have liberalized the coverages that we are aware of from what's happened up north with the wildfires we've had from a year ago. And that's important because it won't appear in the policy. However, their practice, that liberalization should apply here. The policy may not show it. However, since it's been occurring within the policy period, those changes should be brought to. So that's another thing to request is any liberalization in the policy, meaning have they given any more? Because some of the carriers have. They've extended some of the benefits, and that's important to know. And it should apply here as it does there. The same carrier.
And you guys read the policies for the insured too, make sure that they're getting.
We do.
That's written in not in layman's terms, so that's pretty sophisticated, isn't it? Those policies.
Very, very, and there a lot of ambiguity in there.
All right, hold on for a second, Michael. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll get right back to you. So hang on, don't go anywhere.
If you want to ask the judge a question, go to askjudgeherb@gmail.com, askjudgeherb@gmail.com, and also get his book From the Trench to the Bench, available on Amazon.com. We'll be back with more with Judge Herb Dale right after this.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
Anyway, welcome back, and I'm amazed at the depth of your knowledge, Michael. I know you've been doing this a long time. You were president of the association, National Association of Public Insurance Adjusters, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
So that's a national organization of people who do what you do, and you were the president.
I was, and it's an important association because we are able to exchange information that benefits the consumer and see the difference in different state legislatures and insurance departments and how those changes affect different insureds in different areas.
I was once a member of that association, actually, and I actually gave a speech there once. I think you were there. I think you were there, as a matter of fact.
I was there.
Steve Smith represented the insurance companies, and I represented the insureds. And we did a little presentation for you, someplace like in San Diego, as I remember.
I think so.
Anyway, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know that we only scratched the surface. Most people are now saying to themselves, what am I going to do? I'm now living in a hotel. I don't know what my insurance policy provides. I don't know if I'm going to get the full value of my house because it increased in value and I may never increase my policy limits. People are going to be faced with difficult choices without knowledge. And it's people like you that can help them through the difficult times. So for our listeners, I recommend you give some serious thought to calling Michael. He's very, very easy to get along with, as you can tell from the interview. And we'll be in touch, Michael. Thank you again for appearing with us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
So anyway, I wanted to mention he was more kind to the insurance companies than I was. There's a concept called bad faith. Those two words you should memorize. Bad faith means if the insurance company lowballs your damages, lowballs meaning you think it's worth $100 and they offer you 10, that's called a lowball offer. That's against the law. That's called bad faith. And if you have to sue your insurance company for bad faith to collect policy benefits, not only do you get money beyond the policy limits, in other words, there's no more policy limit, but you can also get attorney's fees. And for those of you who are interested in the subject matter, I've been doing it long enough to know I took one to the Supreme Court, the California Supreme Court. We won 7-0, which changed California insurance law. The case is called Essex versus Five Star Insurance, Five Star Die House. And it's a Supreme Court case, California Supreme Court. It's attached actually in the appendix to the book. It's in the book.
From the trench to the bench.
Yeah, and you can see what some remedies that are available to you that hadn't previously been available to you prior to the passage or actually to the Supreme Court's affirmation of the Court of Appeals, because we won in the Court of Appeals also. And it dealt with attorney's fees and what's assignable and things of that nature. But I was telling the story about I went to the Midwest to take this deposition, and the guy ultimately admitted that they figured out of every 100 cases that they deny, people either die, they can't get a lawyer, they're intimidated, whatever it is. They end up somewhere between 10 and 15% of what the real value is. They're playing the float. The float is the longer they keep your money and the less they pay you, the better it is going to be for them.
Well, more money for them.
But I also should mention there's a big risk. And this goes back to a case I tried, a jury trial that I had many years ago, where the insurance company took the position that the insured had evaluated the claim by exaggerating it. He was claiming this fabulous French rug that he had under his coffee table that supposedly burned, and he was asking for a fair amount of money for it. Well, it turned out that rug was never there. That rug was in his chateau in France or something like that.
Oui, oui.
But he was a diplomat of some kind from some postage stamp country. He was the diplomat. And it was an arson fire, 40 gallons of gasoline. And the bottom line was the insurance company claim was it was fraud. Not only fraud in setting the fire, but fraud in overvaluating the claim. So when you're doing these evaluations, as long as you show good faith and a reasonable belief, you're okay. But don't try to make extra money by boosting up the numbers because you think you got a live one at the other end.
I think everybody should just sort of be honest here. The insurance companies and the claim people are going to lost their homes, and just try to work together on this because this is devastating. This is really devastating.
But right now, people who have been basically in the end of losing what they had don't really know what to do.
That's what I'm saying.
This is not going to be first on their list.
No,
but it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, listen. You gotta know what your insurance is. I mean, the first thing I would think of is what am I insured for?
You know what?
How much?
You know the first thing I thought about when we were being evacuated? Where's the policy? I'm looking for the policy.
That's another thing.
You know, most of us, and I must admit, I haven't read the policy in many years.
Of course.
I did read it when I bought it because this is my area of expertise.
Yeah.
You know? And I knew coverage issues and things like that. But for the most part, 99% of the people in this country do not read their insurance policies. No. As Michael mentioned, they read the deck page. It's called the declarations page. It's the first page. It says, okay, your limits for building is X, the limits for contents is Y, your additional living expense is usually up to a year. That's provided for in the policy. But those other 68 pages are filled with endorsements.
Yes.
Endorsements meaning exclusions.
Right.
Like pairing items. If you lose one of a pair of earrings, do you get both pair back? All of these things, there's a body of law on all of this stuff. And the only people who know what that is are people who either specialize in insurance litigation or the public insurance adjusters. So I can say that complicated though it may be, there's some assurances at the other end if you get the right representation and the right public adjusters to work it out for you. You got a shot at getting at least what you lost. The concept of insurance is making the insured whole. That's what it's called. Getting them back to where they were immediately before the loss, like, kind, and quality. That's those are the technical terms that are used. So that was it. The porn star will have to wait till next week.
Or the week after.
Or the week after. depending how busy she is. I got some great jokes, but I thought I'd see.
We got to roll,
save
Judge.
those.
We got to roll. God bless you. I'm glad you're safe. I was worried about you.
Thank you.
All right. See you next week.
Yes, indeed.
God bless.
Second generation, I'm a soldier at birth.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Are you a small business owner or pursuing the dream of starting your own company? Do you know where to start or how to grow that existing business? The American Business Trust Company has the answers you need.